Democrats and President Joe Biden lock immigrant children up in cages, and Project Veritas leaks video of high-tech executives wanting to censor conservatives, and I have a lot to say about that. So we got a video here from News Now from Fox, and it's titled "Kids in Containers, White House Says Biden Treats Illegal Immigrant Different Than Trump." And I love the description down at the bottom. It says Biden himself condemned family separations in 2018, which is absolutely true, describing it as one of the darkest moments in history. But Hannity pointed out, correctly, the administration in which Biden served as vice president inaugurated the policy, meaning they executed it, they put it into place, they put it into action. Well, I'm curious to see how Press Secretary Psaki is going to go ahead and spin this one or dodge questions left and right, but let's go ahead and look at it.
The HHS facility in Carrizo Springs, Texas for migrant children, and you said it is not kids in cages. We've seen some photos now of containers. Is there a better description? Is it kids in containers instead of kids in cages? What is the White House's description of this facility?
Well, you see, the description of the facility is, well, we're no longer using barbaric metal cages, and we thought it would be better to put them in an enclosed space. And see, it's made of metal that's not having holes in it. And you're going to love it. What we did was we went ahead and painted the thing. And you'll hear talk, oh, we got teachers in there. We got everything for them. So what we did was we're still separating children at the border, but we just made it look a little bit more appeasing.
Let me give a broader description of what's happening here. We have a number of...
Let me just kind of zoom out for you and explain to you how I'm going to go ahead and twist this story of how we're not separating children, but in reality, we're separating children.
Unaccompanied minors, children who are coming into the country without their family.
Okay, let's zoom in on this because it's actually really important, and I know I keep pausing it, but she's talking about unaccompanied minors or children coming into the country, and let's see what she says a little bit later here.
Families. What we are not doing, what the last administration did, was separate those kids, rip them from the arms of their parents at the border.
Okay, right there. We're not doing what the last administration did, ripping children, separating them from their parents. If they're coming over unaccompanied without their parents, how could you possibly rip them from the hands or the arms of the parents? It doesn't make any sense. Literally in the same sentence or paragraph, she's already contradicting herself. And folks, we're only 36 seconds into this thing. Can you imagine how this is going to go? Probably not too well. Even more than that, I love the fact that she's going, well, we're not doing what the last administration did. I'm going to go ahead and sidestep the whole thing, the whole 8 years of the Obama administration and the current president being vice president at the time, separating children at the border, putting them in cages, actually building the cage. Who built the cages, Joe? You got to love the dodging that the left does and the manipulation that they do. And they just, the people just eat it up on the left. They're totally okay with it. Look, when Trump did this stuff to us on the right, at least we called it out going, hey, that's a little bit of a manipulation, or hey, calling them out like, hey, that's a stupid thing to say. You probably shouldn't have said that, or hey, you're being an idiot, or please shut up on Twitter. Don't do that. But you got to love the left. They're not going to comment on it. They're in containers. They're not in cages. We're not separating them from their parents. We're not ripping them from their parents' arms or doing anything wrong. We're just putting them in a confined space with metal walls instead of cages.
We are not doing that. That is immoral, and that is not the approach of this administration.
I agree with her. It is immoral. It's terrible to think about children being separated from their families or things happening to these children. Look, their families shouldn't have sent them over in the first place, especially unaccompanied. Are you out of your freaking mind to do that? Sending children miles upon miles across a desert where some adults end up dying through this trip, and you're sending your children with randos, coyotes, people that are raping them. But, hey, it's America's fault. It's Trump's fault. It's everybody's fault other than the parents that decided to send them over here through dangerous territory, through dangerous landscapes. It's so frustrating because you should never do that to children. And it's always the fault of the Americans. It's always the fault of us trying to fix the issue that somebody else caused. It's always our fault. And more than that, it's not even always our fault. It's always the conservatives' fault. It's never the Democrats. It's never the left. It's unbelievable and so frustrating. I hate to see when things happen to children. It's completely wrong. And it's the fault of the parents for sending them over here in the first place unaccompanied. It's so frustrating.
These kids, we have a couple of options. We can send them back home and do a dangerous journey back. We are not doing that either.
Send them home and give them a dangerous journey back. Who in their right mind is talking about sending them back through the same journey they just came? Most people hop back on a plane and we send them back that way. I'm sure there's other alternatives to where we can send these children back in a hospitable environment to where they will be taken care of, and that we can connect them back with whoever they need to be taken care of with, whether that's a parent or guardian or whoever. You're going to see she's going to talk about vetting these children, vetting them, getting them connected to maybe families in the United States that can take care of them, maybe sponsor them. We can do the same thing by sending them back or holding them here, taking care of them, and then, finding other alternatives rather than sending them back through the desert. What are you even talking about, lady? Jeez Louise.
That is also putting them at risk. We can quickly transfer them from CBP to these HHS-run facilities. That's one option. Or we can put them with families and sponsors without any vetting. There were some problems that process ran into as well. We've chosen the middle option. And these HHS facilities, this is one of them you're referring to, we had to...
There you have it. She literally talked about him referring to the containers, putting children in containers rather than cages. She didn't say it outright, but there you go. She slipped it in there. She technically answered the question without actually saying that they were putting children in containers rather than cages. You gotta love it. And of course, nobody on the left is going to make an uproar about it. Why? Because it's not conservatives doing it. It's the left doing it. It's Democrats doing it. And again, it's okay when they do it because there's a double standard there.
Expand and open additional facilities because there was not enough space in the existing facilities, and if we were to abide by COVID protocols.
There wasn't enough space even pre-COVID. So the whole fact that she's saying, like, well, there's not enough space now because of COVID and social distancing and all this other stuff is just a cop-out and excuse to move people over to different facilities, put them in containers rather than cages, and call it a day, and nobody's going to bat an eye about it.
The process and the step. This facility in Texas, which has been reopened, has been revamped, there are teachers, there is medical facilities, and our objective is to move these kids quickly from there to...
There's teachers and medical facilities and all these other things. She's making it seem like they didn't have these things beforehand. There's videos of some nice facilities. I would say some of these facilities are nicer than some public school classrooms that I've worked in. And I am not kidding. I have worked in public school classrooms where literally there was holes in the floor. Literal holes in the floor of where I was sitting. I'm not saying that these are great conditions, but I've seen photos of some of these places where these migrant children are at, and they aren't as bad as the media are making them out to make it out to be. I'm sure some of them are terrible, and we got to revamp those. I'm completely on board. Again, I am not for putting children in cages. I'm not for treating children inappropriately. I think that we should do everything we possibly can to take care of these children. I think the churches should get involved. I think we should find ways of donating money to these places. So again, that children can be taken care of. They're not scared, that they're not being hurt, that they're being fed appropriately. We got to do everything we can to take care of these children. But again, the conversation's about the double standard that the left is doing, and it's completely wrong, and it's disgusting, and I hate it. We got to take care of these children in a better way that we have been doing, and the left is clearly not doing a better job than even the Republicans were doing. So
to vetted, sponsored families and to places where they can safely be. This is a difficult situation. It's a difficult choice. That's the choice we've made.
So just one step back from that, we've been talking to people.
It's a difficult choice, and that's the choice we made. It's the same thing that the Republicans have been doing. Look, it's a difficult choice, but that's a choice that we had to make. By putting children and separating children from their families. Why? Because that's what the law said, and it's the job of the president to execute the executive branch. It's the job of to execute the laws that are in place. If you don't like it, then Congress is the one that needs to change it, not the president of the United States. He was hired and elected to carry out the laws and execute them.
Down at the border who say that right now DHS and the Border Patrol are using the same kind of facilities now that they did during the Trump administration, and that there's a facility right now, it's in Donna, Texas instead of McAllen, Texas, but it's tents and chain link fence around it. And so
a CBP facility before they're transferred to the HHS facility, is that what you're referring to?
Yes, and the issue would be that just in the last couple days, they had hundreds of kids that they were holding for over 72 hours, which is the legal limit to keep somebody in a temporary facility. So I'm just curious why
Well,
this is
let's
happening.
be clear though, because I know you want to be clear with the public
Yes.
about the differences. The CBP facilities, which you're right, the objective is to move kids, unaccompanied minors, as quickly as possible, under 72 hours, to these HHS sponsored facilities, which is the one where we've been referring to in Texas. They are two different things. There were some delays last week because of weather and because
At no point here is she answering the guy's question. They're different. He literally just talked about a site having cages. And now she's referring to the site that has cages, or other sites that don't have cages, but they have containers. See, they're different. No, they're not. They're not different at all. You're separating children. You're doing the exact same thing the Obama administration did when Vice President Biden was elected into place or in office. You're doing the exact same thing the Trump administration did. And now again, you're doing the exact same thing that Biden was doing when he was vice president. You're separating children, and you don't want to admit it because it's disgusting and it's wrong, and that we need to figure out a better solution to dealing with this immigration issue.
because some of these facilities to safely move these kids to did not have power and were not in a place where they had the capacity to take in these kids.
I love it when somebody stumbles over their words. That's when you know that they're BSing you. I see it all the time. I saw it as an accountant when you're sitting across from somebody that's being sued or whatever it was. And, you know, you have children doing the exact same thing when they're fumbling through their words because they're trying to figure out a story to manipulate or try to make it seem like you're not doing anything wrong when in actuality you're doing something wrong. Oh, gosh. And she's doing that. She's just not good at her job, unfortunately. If you're going to have somebody that's going to BS me to my face, at least do it a little bit better.
Kids and do it safely. That is not our objective. That is not our goal. So some unfortunately did stay 4 days, 5 days, or longer. But the objective is to move them as quickly as possible to the HHS-sponsored facilities.
Has the White House
So we're keeping the children in cages longer than they're supposed to be in cages so that they can go from one facility that has a cage to another facility that either has a cage or has a container. Perfect. Sounds good. Nothing's changed.
I've seen the comment from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who, speaking about that HHS facility in Carrizo Springs, said this is not okay, never has been okay, never will be okay, no matter the administration or party.
Well,
That didn't age well, did it, AOC? It's only an issue when conservatives do it. It's never an issue when the Obama administration spends years doing the exact same thing, and now we have the Biden administration doing the exact same thing. You got nobody in the streets creating an uproar. You have nobody calling Biden a racist other than Kamala Harris during the primary. It's unreal, and it's so frustrating because the left can't see their own hypocrisy. They literally are incapable of actually seeing a double standard or the hypocrisy that's going on, or they see it and they don't want to confess that it's actually happening.
I think the difficulty is I haven't seen the full context of the quote or interview of the tweet that she shared, but I would say the difficulty is what I outlined earlier. We have kids coming across the border. It is heartbreaking. I think we all as human beings are heartbroken, as parents, as mothers, as fathers too. We only have a couple of choices. What we are not doing is dividing these kids and separating from their parents at the border, which is what the last administration did, and why President Biden, or then candidate Biden, and then candidate Harris were outspoken at the time about these kids being pulled from their parents.
They were outspoken at the time. Where was all the conversation again when Obama was doing it? When Vice President Biden was in office? Where was the conversation then? And where's the conversation now from the left saying this is wrong? Where is anybody calling out Biden right now other than a Fox News reporter? That's why we don't take you guys seriously, because you don't want to solve the problem. You just want to manipulate the problem, making it seem like it's okay when you're doing it. Conservatives have tried to solve the problem, and yes, I'm a little frustrated with Republicans and also Trump not getting the wall built, promising that side of the story and not completing it, although he has some of it built. I want to see better immigration enforcement going on to where, again, this stuff doesn't happen. She is absolutely right. Nobody on either side of the aisle wants to see children separated from their parents. It is, as somebody that's a teacher that sees my students every day, it is extremely hard to think about that there's other children out there crossing the desert in terrible weather, terrible terrain, some of them dying, some of them getting raped, terrible things happening to them. And that's why I get so worked up. is because this shouldn't be a problem when we need to fix it.
We are doing is working as quickly as possible to process these kids into these HHS facilities, which have been revamped, which have medical and educational services available. So
that stuff was already there. She keeps saying, oh, it's a better facility, that there was teachers, there's medical facilities, all this other stuff. That stuff was already there. I'm sure you could find a facility out there that probably was lacking in these things. It's government run. The government sucks at everything. That's what conservatives have been saying for a year. They suck at everything. Well, we have teachers there and we have facilities and stuff like that. Yes, we had that before. And what you did was you took those facilities and you said, oh, well, they didn't have clean drinking water. They were drinking out of toilets and all this other stuff. Unbelievable.
So that we can then transfer them to families. That's what our approach is.
And so if there is this big difference, would the administration support, if it could be done safely because of COVID and with privacy concerns for the children in mind, would the administration support letting reporters in and press in to see what the difference is?
I think you'd have to talk to the Department of Homeland Security about that. There are obviously safety.
Why would anybody need to talk to the Department of Homeland Security about that? His question was for her and the president's administration, and basically saying, hey, would the president be cool with us just going in and kind of taking a peek? That's fine if they say, yeah, that, we would be cool with that. And then transitioning into like, but you need to talk to Homeland Security and see if they're cool with you guys entering in and yada, yada, yada. But she completely dodged the question of saying, yeah, we would be fine with it, but you got to talk to somebody else and see if they're fine with it. So another way of twisting everything here, and typical leftist stuff.
Protocols about that, privacy concerns, but I certainly encourage you to reach out about that. Go ahead in the back.
There you have it, folks. We knew this was going to happen. We knew the left was going to sit there and twist things. Again, she's a press secretary. That's her job, is to kind of manipulate things a little bit. I get that. It's politics. The right does it as well. But again, the double standard here, it's wrong when somebody does it on the right. It's okay when somebody does on the left. We're just going to call it something different. They're not cages. They're containers. They're not walls. They're fences. All this just manipulation of wording is what the left does. They're immigrants. They're not illegal immigrants, right? There's no difference between legal and illegal. It is frustrating because it's something we constantly deal about, and constantly deal with this stuff, and it just should not be an issue with just saying, hey, look, this person's here illegally. We need to fix the issue, and whatever we need to do to take care of them, whether that's sending them back in good conditions or finding them a sponsor family, whatever it is, we need to sort this out rather than going, well, it's okay that we're doing it, but it's not okay that the right's doing it. What a bunch of crap. So our next story here is a leaked insider tape reveals Salesforce's plan to deplatform broader range of customers who have the potential to incite politically motivated violence. Salesforce inexplicitly severs ties with Project Veritas. The article starts off here by saying Project Veritas released a new video today leaked by a Salesforce insider exposing the company's executives adhering to cancel culture mentality following the events at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. Again, I already gave my opinion on the U.S. Capitol. What happened was absolutely despicable, it was disgusting, and it should have never happened. Article goes into saying, on their website, Salesforce states they are the world's top customer relationship management platform, which is also known as CRM, with over 150,000 clients. Salesforce alleges they bring companies and customers together. That allegation is now worthy of some serious question. I would absolutely agree with that statement. The fact that now they're about to deplatform people. How are you going to be bringing customers and companies together when you're deplatforming? In other words, you're separating them now. Sounds like you're going to need a new slogan, Salesforce. Brett Taylor, Salesforce's president and chief operating officer, said that what happened in Washington, D.C. on January 6th has forced the company to rethink how they do business. Since the events on January 6th, I think one of the things that really impacts Salesforce is the national conversation about the role of technology in inciting that mob, disseminating information, and fomenting extremism, Taylor said. What we have done in light of the events of January 6th is recognize a much broader range of messages having the potential to incite politically motivated violence, he said. I don't know if any of you have seen the movie The Minority Report, where somebody was found guilty of committing a crime when they haven't even committed it yet. But this is exactly what it's talking about, where somebody's posted a message that could potentially incite violence, but it'll be taken down or censored, even though it hadn't actually incited violence yet. It's funny because you have people out there on the left or leftist companies like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter that say all this stuff is misinformation, it's conspiracy. Nobody's trying to censor you, nobody's trying to get rid of you, nobody's trying to deplatform you, all these other things. And now we have a leaked video proving all of it. I encourage you to go over to Project Veritas and watch the whole video that they posted. It's absolutely unbelievable the stuff that this guy's saying. The Salesforce president and chief operating officer, Brett Taylor, what this person is saying in regards to how big tech is handling all this stuff. It is unbelievable, and it's exactly what we have been saying. And what's going to happen is, even though there's video of it, even though there's proof of it, the left is going to say, we don't know what you're talking about. That's not what we're really doing here. We're just kind of looking at it. And then while they're doing all this other stuff, they're going to be continuing to deplatform people. It's a constant just BS game going back and forth here. And this is exactly what I was talking about in a previous episode of mine, where I'm trying to put advertisements out there with Google, right? Pay them money for advertisements. And what they're saying is that my video has the potential of inciting violence. That's the real reason why they're not posting it, is exactly what this stuff is talking about here. Because it has the potential to incite violence. No matter what a conservative says, it all has the potential to insert violence or incite violence. Who's the one that's going to dictate that? Maybe my words, I'm not trying to incite violence. I'm not trying to create an uproar. I'm just trying to get my view out there to the world. And if they want to agree with it, great. I don't think we should ever be violent on anything. I don't think we should hurt people. I don't think we should punch people. I don't think we should light things on fire. I don't think we should storm the Capitol. I don't think we should do any of that thing. I think we should treat people with love, kindness, respect. Even though the way I talk, it comes off very strong. That's just the way I am. But that doesn't mean I don't love my fellow countrymen. That doesn't mean I don't love the left. Look, they're human beings. They're people. I want to get along with them. I want to have a relationship with them. We're all Americans. Again, I'm writing a book all about how we're a family. We need to come back together again as a country and unify once again. Again, that's what exactly President Obama is pushing. And I love that message of unifying. But it's the left that has to unify with the right. The right is constantly trying to unify with the left. And what you're doing is constantly trying to censor us and inhibit us from wanting to unify with you. It's just either you mean it or you don't mean it. And I'd rather you just be upfront with it of like, hey, we don't like you. We don't want to be with you. We don't want to unify with you. Fine. Then we'll separate and we'll go with it that way. It says here later, we've engaged with the RNC, okay, to communicate that no messages on behalf of President Trump and no messages questioning the validity or integrity of the election are allowed on our platform under the guidelines that they may incite violence given the escalated conditions in the United States right now. My thing, though, is how do you do any reporting on that then? How do you get your message out there as a reporter if you find any fraud or anything wrong with the election? That's a huge problem. If you're a reporter, if you're media, if you're pro-free speech, that's a huge issue, because if you actually find problems in the election, if you actually find a little bit of fraud, that doesn't mean that the election was rigged. That doesn't mean anybody stole the election. That just means that you actually found a little bit of fraud, whether it's one person, 100 people, 1,000 people, whoever it is. It might not overturn the election. That's not what anybody, I think the vast majority of conservatives are saying here, or they shouldn't say. But to say that there was no fraud anywhere out of 300 million people or 150 million people who might have casted their votes or whatever, you're telling me not a single person might have committed fraud in that? Statistically, you're out of your mind. There has to be at least one person, right, that committed fraud. And when you find that story of somebody committing fraud, doing something wrong, you should be able to run with it. And the fact here, you're saying, well, that one story might incite violence, so we're not going to push it. We're not going to put it out there. And there's even a reason why even people on the right now are starting to believe what the mass media is pushing. It's because you're suppressing the information that needs to get out there to allow people to make an opinion and make a decision, whether if there was fraud or if there wasn't fraud, or if there's small cases of fraud or whatever it was. You need to leave it up to the American people to make that decision. You don't have the right to sit there and censor people, or you shouldn't have the right to censor people. People should be able to post whatever they want. If you're a private company, again, I fully respect that. Sure, you have the right to censor somebody. It's your company. You should be able to do whatever the heck you want. I am all for that. I don't think it's right, and so I get to complain about it. It says here, we're looking across our customer base to make sure our technology is not being used by businesses or other platforms that are inciting political violence. How do you dictate if it's inciting political violence or not? Like, what are your guidelines on this stuff? What happens if somebody says something that's political that you might take as inciting violence, but there's no violence that has actually been committed on behalf of what that person's posting? It still gets taken down regardless of what happens or what doesn't happen. This is some Minority Report crap, and you guys know it. This is nuts. In the video, it shows how Salesforce's legal representative sent them an email saying, hey, we don't want to be working with you anymore and we're going to cut ties, basically. I want to emphasize again, Salesforce has every right to do this. It's their company. They can do what they want. It doesn't mean it's a good image. And what's going to happen is the conservative right needs to create more platforms and just start running stuff ourselves. The problem with that, and I agree, Tim Pool has talked about this exact same thing, is that you're going to have a separation within the country. And we don't want that. And this is proof that we don't want that, because Michael Schaefer was consistently trying to work with Salesforce, consistently trying to work with them to see if we can come to an agreement, or that we can have a working relationship with one another where we can carry our services together. And it's them trying to not work with the right. It's the left continually not trying to work with the right, even though they say they want to. And it's a bunch of crap at this point. I fully don't believe it. Not only that, I don't believe it when the left says it, and I don't believe it when the Democrats say it, because their actions speak louder than their words, because you constantly have the right trying to work with them. Look what happened with Parler. If you don't know anything about Parler, it was a platform very similar to Twitter, where they're constantly trying to work with Google and Apple to make things work so that they could stay on their platform, so people have another opportunity to use a different platform other than Twitter and Google or whatever the heck they want to use, so that they don't get deplatformed. Well, what happened was, even though Parler was trying to work with them, even though Parler was trying to make an agreement on their terms of service so that they could stay on the platform for Apple and Google and Amazon, yada, 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 what they went ahead and did was, well, screw you, we're going to get rid of you anyways. We don't want to collaborate with you. We don't want to work with you. Why? Because you're conservative. And we're not going to say that to anybody. We're just going to say that you're getting misinformation, you're a conspiracy theorist, you want to incite violence or potentially incite violence. So because you could potentially do something, we're going to go ahead and deplatform you and get rid of you. But hey, by the way, we want to unify with you. We want to get along with you, but we don't want to hear from you. We don't want to see you. We want you to shut up and go with exactly what we're trying to say and push our narrative. It just gets exhausting after a while, because you have these people saying something to your face. They're saying, oh, we like you, we love you, but behind you, I'm going to go ahead and backstab you. I'm going to say all this other stuff about you. It's just two-faced at the end of the day. Plain and simple, it's two-faced, and that's exactly what the left's doing here. Look, if you want to work with conservatives, we want to work with you. We'll have conversations with you. We'll have you on our show, but it's you constantly not wanting to unify with us. It's us constantly wanting to unify with you and work together with you. And let's be quite frank, you don't want to do it. I'd rather you be upfront about it and tell us to our face rather than lying to us about it. So we're constantly seeing the left try and censor the right. And again, I can't say this enough. This is exactly what's happening to me on a small channel. I don't have any views on this thing, and I'm still being censored. Google is not allowing me to run ads for the potential of inciting violence because of the things that I say. That is why they're not letting me run ads. So I'm asking you to share this video with your friends and family. Please hit that like button so on the YouTube algorithm, they have no choice but to push this video out there. I want to thank you for your loyalty and dedication to my channel. I want to thank you for sticking through and watching the whole thing. Again, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one.